So welcome everyone to our masterclass on hit music theory and the 5 ninja skills every musician needs. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be informative. And for some of you, it's going to be your lucky day. And I'll explain why in a minute. So I want to say hello. I'm Dave Cusack. I'm the founder of Berklee Online and the New Artist Model. And I want to thank you for coming to this masterclass and welcome you to this hit music theory, 5 ninja skills every musician needs. We've got a lot to deliver to you today. So I'm going to get going right away. We're going to dive into some areas of music theory today. Daniel, you want to mute your mic?
Oh, sure.
And show you 5 essential skills, including subdivision and groove, scale and tonality, harmonic function, modes, and voice leading. And we're going to do this in a very unique and interesting way. You may not have actually seen something like this before. We're going to take a look at a hit song and how writers used music theory to craft their hit. Today, we're going to look at Get Lucky, a song written by French duo Daft Punk, along with Pharrell Williams and Nile Rodgers. Now, these folks are responsible for writing lots and lots of hit songs, and they really understand music theory. The song Get Lucky broke all kinds of records, in particular on Spotify. It won a Grammy for Best Song of the Year in 2013. And now, during today's masterclass, not only will you be learning something about music theory, but we're going to be giving away some hit music theory online courses today, along with a free ebook called Inside the Hits and taking your questions. So stick around, okay? For the entire masterclass, it'll be about an hour. We're going to try and close it off in an hour. You have to be present to win the courses, and the only way to get the ebook is right here in the masterclass, so stick around. If you have any questions along the way, type them into the chat on the right side of your screen. Chelsea Ira is here. Wave to the people, Chelsea. Chelsea works with us, and she's here to help guide you, and we will be answering as many questions as we can, so don't be shy. Type them into the chat, okay? So why should music theory be important to you? Well, you want to understand the language of music. It's amazing to me how many people just don't really understand what music is all about. Music theory is important also to be able to get the songs out of your head, get that music that you hear in your head out into a form that you can use. It's also important so that you can hang and jam with anybody, and overall it will help make you a better musician. So right now I want to introduce our ninja instructor, my good friend Daniel Roberts. Daniel, as you're going to see, is one badass musician, a multi-instrumentalist, a producer, a label owner, and one of the most clever music theory teachers that I've ever met. Daniel, say hello.
Hey everybody. How's it going, Dave, Chelsea? Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do this class. So why don't you just dive in and show how to get lucky with music theory.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Again, my name is Daniel Roberts. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day and checking this out. Really excited to share the hit music theory course that Dave and Chelsea and I have put together for you guys. I'm going to hit on these 5 ninja skills, and they are a way to get into things that get musically and theory-wise get really deep. So don't be concerned if you feel like there's something you missed, or that there's not enough yet. This is like a quick overview to show you how valuable these concepts are. All the applications of them get really deep, and we get way more into them into the course. So definitely check it out if you find that any of these useful and interesting to you. So the first ninja skill is to be able to come into any musical situation and just you want to basically drop into any musical context and make people dance. And the most important thing to doing that has actually nothing to do with any pitch or chord that you play or any melody. It's the rhythm underneath everything else that you're doing. And that is really defined by the subdivision that the song is playing with and the groove that comes out of that. So what is subdivision? Subdivision is the way that you break up beats. So you might count off a song, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you know that those are the beats, but there's a lot of time inside of those, and you can break that up into smaller pieces. People usually break it up into groups of 2, 3, or 4, but you can actually break it up however you want. Once you break up those pieces, sometimes those notes inside of the beat can be played really evenly. Sometimes they can be played very unevenly, and how you mess with that creates what the groove is. And it's very important that you feel that deeply, no matter what context musically you're in, because that is what makes people want to get up and dance or not, right? So in Get Lucky, there is what we call a 16th note subdivision. That's where you break the beat up into groups of 4, right? So even though the beat is going 1, 2, 3, 4 all the time, I'm hearing 1 yen, a 2 yen, a 3 yen, a 4 yen. And that guides all kinds of rhythmic content that happens in the song. The easiest place to see it first, I think, is in the guitar part, where if you watch my hand, I'm literally playing 16th notes up and down. I'm not actually hitting the string all the time, but that's where everything is coming from. I'm really feeling that subdivision. And then I just choose 16th notes inside of that subdivision to play. It sounds like this. And it's one note, right? It's not a lot of information at all as far as a note is concerned, but it's a huge part of what makes people groove and want to get up and dance. And that shows up in a lot of other parts. So, for instance, the bass line also uses 16th note rhythms from that subdivision. And especially the notes that feel like a little off kilter or unexpected or early that really help make that groove happen, they're often the ones that are part of that subdivision. Subdivision that way is really hugely useful and important because it helps you really know rhythmically what's going on, drop in and make the groove happen. Now that's great if you're just doing a cover. What if you really want to actually write a song? You're just really inspired by Get Lucky. You want to write your own hit in the same style. You can take that understanding of subdivision and how it applies in a song you've learned, and then you can manipulate it to create something in the same style, right? So let's say I want to create another guitar part, but I don't want it to be. I can just start by changing the rhythm. Play the same note, but play a different rhythm with the same 16th note subdivision, really feeling that strongly. So it might be. And the same thing could go for a bass line. I'm still feeling that same underneath 16th note thing all the time, right? So that is the power of subdivision and groove. And it's what you use to achieve the ninja skill of being able to drop, rhythmically speaking, into any musical context and make people dance. And we get much more deeper into this in the hit music theory course that we're selling today. So yeah.
Cool. So, hey, along the way, if anybody has any questions about anything that Daniel is talking about, just type them in and we will queue up your questions and get to them. Anything else you want to say at all about that subject before we move on?
No, I think the main thing is just as you're learning it, I think it's always important for all of these contexts to take your time too, right? So these are big concepts, and they I feel like I'm still learning how to really feel subdivisions and grooves. It's an ongoing thing, And so enjoy the process as you do it, because it'll constantly get deeper. And don't rush it. The one thing that will ensure you won't be able to get there is if you push too hard and expect too much of yourself right away. Just be present and enjoy the process.
How would you talk to your bandmates about subdivision when you guys are say trying to do a cover or you're trying to do a song?
Yeah. So if you're playing in a band, your groove might be great, but if the other people feel the groove differently, no one wants to dance, right? Because it's the collective's way of playing that establishes whether you hear a groove or not, right? So the general thing is first to identify, how is this beat broken up, right? Is it in groups of 2 or 3 or 4? And you can often hear that by listening to a drummer's part. Listen to the hi-hat. There's a lot of where the subdivision will pop out is in that part. And it'll either be a straight thing where the drummer will play straight 8th notes or 16th notes, or the rhythm will clearly be made up of smaller notes that way. So you can tell what's underlying. Then the second thing to do is talk about, are you playing really metronomically, right on time and very evenly, or are you playing early, meaning a little before the beat or on top of the beat? Or are you swinging a lot of the subdivision so that you play things later, right? We all know the easiest context to think of swing or two contexts are in traditional jazz music, when you hear people swinging the 8th note. It's straight 8th notes if you were to look at it on a piece of paper, but that sort of rhythm is, the second 8th note is always late, right? So it's a way to talk about it.
Cool. All right. Skill number 1, subdivision and groove. Let's take skill number 2. Take it away.
All right. So once you have a strong, rhythmic sense going, you understand your subdivision and your groove, and you'll be able to start like really feeling it in the pocket. You want to be able to achieve skill number 2, which is, right away, you want to know which notes are going to fit better than others. And I'm sure all of us have had the experience of being in a band context where somebody can't tell that they're not playing in the right key, or that something they're playing is just not working at all. And finding a way to talk about that and become better at hearing that and using that is really important. The way you do that is by talking about something called tonality, keys and tonality. So really, anytime you're playing music, there's generally some kind of key you're playing in. And if you know what that key is defined by a central pitch that we actually, whether you know it intellectually or not, we all hear everything against. So like if I say I'm playing an A major, our ear will hear everything around that pitch A. The notes that are more closer to A will sound, generally speaking, more consonant, or like we'll be comfortable with them, and the ones farther away will be more dissonant and harsh. Then what you do is you create a tonality by choosing a scale to build on top of that pitch. And so in music, we often use the major scale most commonly, and various other scales that come out of it. But if you know that, you can immediately know, well, there's these 7 notes that fit in the song I'm playing, right? So Daft Punk actually comes from an A major tonality. Now, we never hit the chord A major, but everything is being pulled from that tonality. So this B, this chord, this D, F sharp minor, and E are all straight from that tonality. So if I play any notes from the A major scale, they will all fit, you can tell. Now, you can tell also if it's really out. And you can actually start learning to hear and use this sense of tonality, even if you find it challenging at first to really work out where all the scale patterns are for your instrument or whatever. You can also just use your ear, because it becomes pretty clear very often if you're playing in the wrong tonality, right? So, for example, I'll play I'll play a B flat major scale over the same chords, and you can hear how right away you'll know something's not right. So. There's always a way, some killer musicians can always find a way to try to make, quote, make that work. But you can tell, like, those notes do not fit as naturally and easily as the ones from the A major scale. Right? So that's the second, ninja skill, which is to be able to find right away the notes that are going to work by understanding what a key and a tonality is, and using that whenever you play a song. A good way to practice this, to start exploring it and getting comfortable, is just to turn on a song that you like and look up what key it's in, and then start learning. Find the root note of that key, or the tonal center. So in the case of Get Lucky, that would be pitch A, and build a scale on top. And if you are comfortable with that and it makes sense to you to build a scale, great. If at first you're confused by how to really build it, just use your ear and start working slowly through, building up a couple of notes around that pitch that sound really good to you, and just play along with the song. You can even start by just literally playing up and down the scale, and it'll work. And when you get bored of that, then just start making up little patterns. Choose a couple of notes from the scale and just play them back and forth as the chords change, and add a few more notes, shift around. And pretty soon you'll start finding that your ear will really hear how those notes fit in, and you will also start discovering some things you really like to play that you can pull over whatever chords. Okay, so that's the second ninja skill. It's to be able to find the right notes to play over any song without even having heard the song before, just knowing what its tonality and its key is.
Cool. All right. Once again, if anyone has any questions about that, type them in, and as we move on, we will be taking your questions. So right now, let's move on to number 3. We got a lot of material to cover.
Yeah.
Harmonic function.
Yeah. So this ninja skill, developing your sense of harmonic function is what gives you the ninja skill of being able to hear a chord progression once and then be able to play it and manipulate it, right? So believe it or not, inside of any tonality, there are 7 pitches. And when we think of chords, when we build chords, we actually usually choose one of those 7 pitches, and then we stick notes on top to create chords. When you do that, what happens is each of those chords built on a different note actually has its own kind of color and sound, which you can learn to identify. And it's usually named with just a number. So, and the number refers to the note that the chord is built off of. So again, if I'm in A major, I have 7 pitches: A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then back to A again. I could build a chord on any one of those. And the harmonic function of that chord, when people are speaking quickly about it, would just be a number. So this is a 1 chord because it's built off the first note of the scale. This is a 3 chord because it's built off of the 3rd note of the scale. And it turns out that no matter what key you're in, as long as it's a certain tonality, like major, every single type of, each of these chords will have the same kind of color. So you can end up listening to a song. I do this all the time. When I'm listening to music, I almost can't not analyze it anymore because I've done it so much. But I'm always thinking, oh, what is the harmonic function in each of these chords? Oh, that's a 2 chord. Oh, that's a 4 chord. That's a 6 chord. Oh, that's a 5 chord. Now, when you're first getting into this, it's a little bit challenging to know what you want to have some kind of focus point of something to listen to, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And I've found that the easiest thing to do is often just to listen to the bass player, because more often than not, the bass player will be playing the root notes of each of these chords going by. And those are the notes that you build these, on top of which these harmonic functions work. All right, so when I'm listening to Daft Punk and I hear him go, can see that, I can hear that that's the second note of the scale, the fourth note of the scale, the sixth note of the scale, and the fifth note of the scale. Now, some of you might be really comfortable with that idea and have, easily heard things quickly. You find it to be really natural, and that's great. Others of you, probably like me, sometimes needed some way to develop this easier. And so I found, and this is a common thing in a lot of music schools, people give some kind of name to these pitches or syllable, either a number or a syllable, and then they sing them. And something about singing them, you don't have to be a good singer at all. You don't have to sing in front of anybody to do this, but you can develop how much you hear and be able to sing those pitches. So I might go 1, 4, 6, 5, and I've heard that enough and sung that enough that I really start to hear, oh, a 2. When I say 2, I hear that. I hear what that tonality sounds like. It starts to just kind of get clearer in your head. And the more you practice doing it, the better it'll get. It doesn't happen right away, but it does work. You just make it your regular practice to do that as you listen to songs.
So we're getting some questions about, playing within the scale, as a technique that you're illustrating. But what if you want to create a little bit of harmonic tension, or you want to try and make a variation? How would you recommend that people approach that?
Yeah. So we'll get some of that. There's a lot of ways. I think the first thing to do is if you're trying to create tension over a particular set of chords you already have, then the way to create tension is to play notes that are farther away or less related to the chord. So that can either be notes in the scale that are in the that you're using, but aren't actually specifically in that chord. So for instance, if I'm playing this 2 chord here, I could play a C sharp, which is not in, it is in the scale, but it's not in this B minor chord. And that fits, but it adds tension, right? The other option is to just think about, as you're playing these chords, some of them will sound like they have more tension, and others will sound like they have less tension. And so you can use that to your advantage. In the world of tonal theory, the 5 chord is considered the most tense, or at least in traditional classical theory. So you often hear, how many times have we heard some kind of classical sounding thing go, excuse me. That back and forth of this 5 chord, which is really tense, and the 1 chord is like the basis for a ton of classical theory. And that's intentionally used, right? Here's a 1 chord that's more tense. And so if I want to build tension, I'll find ways to hang on this. Sometimes composers create entire sections of music built on this 1 chord to build tension. And then finally resolve and go back. So you can just kind of explore when you listen to these chords and you're trying to hear how they function in your ear. You'll notice some of them will sound more tense and some less, and you can use that.
Cool. All right. All right. Once again, if you have questions about this stuff, type them in. Now we're going to move on to something that I've always found very mysterious. As Daniel has talked to me about modes, it's become a lot more clear. So this is our 4th ninja skill. Yeah.
So modes are really confusing at first because they're almost more a shift in the way you think and the way you hear, and not so much a difference. It's not like you change the scale that you're playing, right? The difficulty with mode is that on your guitar or whatever instrument, you're playing the same pitch as you were when you're just kind of exploring a tonality, right? So it seems like nothing has changed. But actually, how you play the notes inside of a certain tonality has an enormous impact on how they are perceived. And a way to understand this is to start playing the scale on a pitch other than its the first note in the scale. right? So for instance, if I play the A major scale again, but I start on C sharp, which is the third note of the scale, it doesn't sound like A major at all anymore, right? Sounds like, it's either, an attempt to get all exotic, or you could use it to like get really heavy, and it's totally not, not happy major music, right? But it's the exact same pitches, right? So it's a shift in the way you think. I'm just thinking I'm going to use the same pitches, but I'll start hanging around the third note of the scale, and that changes how my ear perceives all of those pitches in the scale. When I do that, the resulting set of notes is called a mode. And so this is the third mode of the major scale because it starts on the third note of the major scale. And this is hugely important to develop the fourth ninja skill, which is to zero in on the best notes to play during any chord. Because when you play a certain chord and it has a certain harmonic function, that harmonic function is actually fully expressed as a mode. So if I play this 3 chord, the pitches that sound richest over that will come from playing that third mode. And so it will naturally make my ear shift, even though I'm using the same pitches, because I'm thinking of it as a mode. I will start hearing the notes that more naturally fit with this C sharp minor chord instead of a B minor or an A major chord, which are also in the same key but have a very different color, right? So that's kind of the value, a huge part of the value of modes is they train your ear to hear what fits most naturally with a chord going on. So you can actually zero in on the best notes more easily that fit with a chord, even without really knowing too much about chords. It colors things so you hear things in a way that you can find the notes easier.
Can you talk a little bit more about modes? I've always learned about them with some sort of Greek names.
Oh, yeah.
Can you resolve that between your approach and that sort of classical approach?
So it's not, it's really just a different way of talking. So the first mode of the major scale is also called the Ionian mode. So that's where I play the major scale and I start on the first note of the scale. If I start on the second mode of the major scale, that's called Dorian. It's just another name. And the reason we have Greek names is because initially the idea of modes actually came from Greece. And the way we think about modes now has almost nothing to do with how they thought about them. And if you're interested and you're a total philosophy nerd or something like that, you can go read Plato. He actually has a ton of stuff on modes and how they should be used and in what context to develop a certain type of character in your person, because they actually felt that music was that powerful to control how you developed as a person. He developed philosophy about how you should learn it and why, and how much you should play what modes in what way to develop a certain kind of character. And they would use names, that came from the Greek. Then there were a ton of shifts that happened after that ended up with us still using the Greek names, but not thinking at all in that kind of way. And so we say use a Dorian mode or Mixolydian mode or whatever, because there's this long tradition of thinking about modes. But we just think of it as a color, a way to play over a certain scale.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Here's a question. So what chord do you play in Get Lucky on the third note mode, C sharp minor?
Okay. So I use that as an example just because that mode is really strong. In Get Lucky, I would not first go to that mode. I would actually use the second mode of the major scale over the B minor chord, or B minor 7, which would be the 2 chord. Because that's built on the second note of the scale, so I use the second mode. Then I would go to the 4 chord is after that. So I'd play the 4th mode of the major scale. Then the 6th mode. And the 5th mode. Now, if you wanted to try to create tension, again, you could intentionally use, quote, the wrong mode, and that would help you find more tension. So I might go play this B minor, but play over top of that the 3rd mode. And that would help create tension, but it would be it wouldn't directly feel as natural right away over the chord.
Very cool. Well, I got to say, you've explained that in a way that it becomes so much more clear.
Okay, good.
For people who haven't studied, years and years. So
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, now we've got number 5, our 5th ninja skill.
Yeah.
Which is coming up right here. Voice leading. What is that all about?
Yeah. So voice leading is it's the term for the world of thinking about music where we decide how to move from one chord to the next. And it's because each chord is made up of a set of pitches, and how those pitches move between one chord to the next has a big effect on how the chords are perceived. The harmonic function we talked about before will still be the same, but you can make things feel very disjunct by making the voices or the pitches in each chord be really separate from each other, or you can make them feel very smooth and strong by making them really close. So and there's 2 really valuable things about knowing how to do that, making it intentional. One is if you just want to have something that feels strong and compelling, you can play the chords so that they're much smoother. So for instance, let's say I'm playing the chords from Get Lucky. But I don't want to jump up and down like this. It's a nice sound, but let's say I really want it to be smoother. Well, what I can do is actually play the same chords, but with different shapes where all the pitches, when I shift between chords, are actually much closer. And that sounds like this. And that is hugely useful in a lot of musical contexts because it feels more relaxed, and also because, and this is huge for a lot of people who play in bands, everybody's always, or at least should be, thinking about how they make sure they don't step on other people in the group, right? You have some guitarist who's just like, there's like no room for anybody else, right? And you're trying to I'm going to create a part that sounds good, except there's like no space anywhere. So, what am I going to do with that? Well, you can intentionally, if you learn about voice leading and how you're going to and learn enough chords to be able to use it well, you can say to yourself and to each person in the group, stay in this particular register in the sort of sonic space, right? So instead of leaping around and using all these chords, just play the same chord progression, but don't move from right here, right? So what that does is then everything in this part will stay out of the way of, say, the bass player who's down here, or the lead player who might be up here. And everybody will know, they can actually improvise, they can create their own parts, but they'll know enough of how to, what space they should be in so they don't step on each other. So that's kind of the summary of that ninja skill, is really, voice leading is a way to generally to move as smoothly between chords as possible, and also to make it possible and easier for you to have your clear own defined space and an arrangement when you're creating something.
So I like the 2 uses of that. the concept of voice leading,
Yeah.
not only can you kind of minimize your movement on your instrument, but you can also create space in the mix that you don't necessarily have to rely on a
Right.
mixer to do, right? Especially
Yes.
if you're performing live.
Right. So I was actually just yesterday at a they called it a non-conference with a bunch of heavy duty front of house sound engineers. And I can't tell you how many times they were so grateful for some of the bands they played with who really knew how to arrange the music so that the parts were clear. Many times in the studio and live, when somebody's trying to, a front of house guy is trying to make the mix good, the band actually does not give the sound guy an arrangement that is something that can really be brought out well. They end up having to do a lot of crazy stuff with EQ and stuff to try to make parts sound as if there's space. But that's not the way to do it, right? The way that you actually get the huge, big, full sounding mixes is first from the source. It has nothing to do with the system and the guy running it. It's what part are you playing? Is your tone good, and is your the register you're playing in not clashing, and what you're playing in that register not clashing with other people?
Can you just define what you mean by register? We're getting a couple of questions.
Yes. Sorry. So register is the musical term for how high or low the pitch is. What's the range of pitches that you're playing in, right? So a really high register would be like up here. A low register would be. And there's stuff everywhere in between, right? You know. If you want to get really particular about it, you can talk about people name pitches by a certain pitch class. So you can say C4 or E5 or whatever. That's a particular pitch in a certain octave. But it's just a quick way to say, are you playing really low, really high? Where are you? And also for anybody who's interested in session work, very often if you run into a session and you want to play something good, they don't always know what they want. And you need to be able to hear a mix and say, oh, this register, there's not something. They want something that sounds this way, whatever. Okay, there's space in the mix. I can play something that'll work really well. And you know where in that mix to place it and what type. And that is a huge leg up for a lot of guys if you can do that.
Cool. Okay, before we move on, would you just kind of summarize the 5 skills that we've gone over so far?
Yeah. So the first was subdivision and groove, which is just the skills you develop so that your sense of rhythm and time and groove are so deep that it almost doesn't matter what you play. People will want to dance anyway. The second is scales and tonality. That's when you build your understanding of those concepts, you start being able to quickly know, without even having heard a song before, what the quote right notes are, or where they are to find them. The third is harmonic function, which is if you develop your ear well enough to hear the functions of chords and be able to name them, you can hear a chord progression once and then play it and manipulate it and use it for your own. Modes, we talked about, is mainly as a way to set your ear up to find the best notes to play over a particular chord or that has a certain harmonic function. And voice leading was the way that we quickly find a way to move smoothly between chords and to create parts that don't get in the way of your bandmates or a certain mix in a session that you're working on.
Great. All right. So we're going to get to a lot of your questions. Keep them coming in on the chat. We're also going to be giving away some online courses here shortly and the ebook that we talked about. So stick around, everybody.
Yeah.
And once again, if you have a question, type it in the chat.
Cool.
There's no such thing as a silly question. Now,
yes,
everything.
I totally agree.
Absolutely. Everything Daniel just covered involves knowing the language of music, right? Which is essential if you want to write great songs. If you don't know the language, you won't get very far in this business. Mm-hmm. So we've developed, over the last year and a half, a brand new online course that we're debuting today for the very first time. You guys are the first folks to have a look at this. Hit music theory is all about giving you the tools you need to create awesome music by teaching you the theory in the context of today's music. It's not about using theory from before. It's about using theory in a practical sense to get the songs out of your head and into a form that you can use.
Yeah.
Hit music theory will give you the skills that you need to be able to write anytime and in any style that you want. So let me talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but we're so excited about it. You know, I've been wanting to reinvent the way music theory is taught since working at Berklee College of Music for 14 years. So I teamed up with Daniel and Chelsea to create an online music theory course entirely based around teaching today's most popular songs, or at least some of them, right? Yeah. And it's the equivalent of 2 college level courses. That was our goal. How can we kind of get level 1 and level 2 in a single online course? But you know what? This is a lot more fun than taking 2 college level courses. We designed the course for working musicians, people like you who are already out there making music. And it's not like what you might have learned in grade school. This is something that you can immediately apply to your songwriting and your performances and your music across the board. How did we do it? We looked at every important aspect of music theory from book 1 and book 2, and we thought about how these concepts are really used in today's music, not the music of 100 years ago. Some of you care about that, but it's more relevant that we're in the world of today. So we picked hit songs from pop genre, blues, funk, hip hop, rock, country, and punk, so that you can see how some absolutely great songwriters and producers are using music theory to create really incredible songs. Songs like Get Lucky that we studied today in a certain sense. We didn't get very deep into it, but other songs like Message in a Bottle by The Police, Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, Higher Ground, originally by Stevie Wonder and then covered again so excellently by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison Blues, the basis of so many songs that came after that. Amy Winehouse's Valerie, 99 Problems by Jay-Z, and way more. So if you like what you've seen today, I think you're gonna really love this course. I hope so. We go through songs one at a time, and we look at what's going on from a rhythmic, melodic, and harmonic perspective. And we've got 10 modules in hit music theory that cover all kinds of things: time, pitch, intervals, major and minor scales, modes, chord voicing, sequences, chromaticism, voice leading, and way more. More than 70 video lessons help you discover what makes each song really awesome and how you can take what you learn and you can make great music too. So if you're struggling in your writing or your playing, if you're not as confident that as you'd like to be, then maybe this course is for you. After taking hit music theory, you're going to understand why music works, and more importantly, how you can immediately use these concepts to create your own music, both covers and your own original songs. Hit music theory starts with the basics so that you build a really strong foundation in music, brick by brick. And we kick it off with Jay-Z's 99 Problems and show you how to control things like tempo and meter, to build riffs and bass lines and rhythms. We show you how to find the tonal center so that you can build harmonies around that. We showed you a little bit of that today. And from there, we explore scales and keys, intervals, chords, numbering systems. Daniel touched on that today, and lead you into modes, voice leading, and so much more. So if you struggle to get the music you hear in your head out into a form that you can use, this course could be something that could really help you. If you have trouble keeping up with other musicians who know music theory, this could be a way for you to catch up. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, if you sometimes feel like you're in a rut with your songs and your writing and everything sounds the same, well, we spent a lot of time focused on that. How do you break out of your rut? Now, this course will show you the secrets to music theory that you might have missed as a kid. Or maybe you never learned because the course you took was just so freaking boring. We guarantee that you're not going to be bored with hit music theory. We spent a lot of time on this. I encourage you to sign up and check it out. We're going to give you a link in just a second. But if you decide that you don't like it for whatever reason, just let me know in the first week and I'll refund your money. No questions asked. Absolutely no questions asked. You have nothing to risk by checking it out. You really don't. And in addition to the 10 lessons and the 70 videos that I talked about, we got 3 really fantastic bonuses that will help extend what you've learned in the course. First, you get access to our Indie Artist Network, which right now you only get if you buy one of our big membership programs. We're going to open that up to the hit music theory community. So you can join a group of music professionals from all around the world who are actively working with one another, helping one another. That's your first bonus. Next, you're going to get the Hit Music Notation Primer. This is an online music theory reference book that you're going to get as a bonus. You could print it out and you can keep it. If you sign up for the program and you decide you don't want it, after a while, if you check it out, you can still keep the notation primer, okay? That's how confident I am that you guys are going to love this course. And third, I've created 10 bonus videos with business and marketing tips to show you how to release covers on YouTube, how to do that really effectively, both YouTube and SoundCloud, and how to turn your viewers and listeners into fans and way more as a complement to all the theory that you're going to learn in hit music theory. So let me ask you right now, is this something that you think you might want? Because if so, I want you to type "I want it" in the chat right now. Type that, okay? Because if you want to win one of these free courses, tell me that you want it right now in the chat. 2 of you are going to win the course for free just for participating right now. So let me know. You want it or not? Awesome. So we're going to let that scroll by, and Chelsea is going to pick 2 winners and post them in the chat. For you 2 lucky winners, we're going to contact you by email, and we're going to let you know how you can claim the free course. You can get in there this afternoon. You can see everything that we've made for you. I'm so excited about this, and I'm so glad you guys are so enthusiastic. So Chelsea, pick them, type them in, and thank you very much. Don't go yet, okay? Because for the rest of you, we're not finished. We're going to be getting to your questions, and I've got a free ebook for you. But before we do that, because you're here on this masterclass, I'm going to give you the chance to sign up for the course at a very, very special discount. We cram so much into the course. It's the equivalent, as I said, of 2 college-level music theory courses, but it's way more fun. And you're learning music that, you know, has charted all over the place and won Grammys. And, you know, 2 college-level courses, if you have looked into that, you know that can go for thousands of dollars each for 2 courses. We're not going to charge you anywhere near that. Because you're here, you can get in at a very special introductory price. You go to that link. I think Chelsea's going to post something in the chat, give you another link you can click. You'll get the complete course plus all 3 bonuses that I talked about, the Facebook group, the hit notation primer, and the 10 music business lessons that I've done just for you. But you need to sign up right now or very soon, because we're only going to make this price available for a couple of days, and then the price is going to go up. So because you're here on the masterclass, thank you very much. Stick around. But you can get in on this course at a special price before everyone else because you came to this masterclass, okay? Because you committed to furthering your education, and, you know, I commend you for that. So take advantage of this right now and save big time. Go to hitmusictheory.com/special and get in on the special deal. Now, before we go on, we promised you a free ebook. I got tons of emails from you guys. Where's my ebook? Well, here it is. Here it is. Okay. Go to hitmusictheory.com/ebook and grab it. This is going to be here also for a couple more days. And we're also going to send everybody email in the next day or two with a replay, with a link to the ebook. So you'll also be able to take advantage of the discount for a couple of days, get the ebook. Just because you're here, you're going to get a replay. You can watch it. Okay. Just remember that all of this ends in a couple of days, literally. So thank you for being here. And now we're going to get into questions. And thank you.
All right. Yeah, questions. My favorite part.
Dude. Isn't Daniel awesome?
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Chelsea, what do we got?
Okay. Sorry, those comments were going so fast. I was having a hard time actually clicking and figuring out who was who to pick the winners. So I guess, should I just say them now, Dave?
Yeah.
So I picked Ada, and I also picked Paul, the Paul who used the email address PABLATOS, I think it was at Gmail or something. So Ada and Paul, we will email you guys, I guess.
Yep.
All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats, guys.
All right. How
All right.
about questions?
So many questions. Should I start at the top, like from the first topic, and kind of work our way down?
Yeah.
All right. So Mike asked a question. What's the difference between subdivision and time signatures?
Yeah, so a time signature is the way that you, well, let's back up. When you think about music, you want to have some kind of, it's all about organizing patterns, right? So the first pattern we organize is beats. You know, we want to say how fast are we playing, and how, you know, when we play, you know, how long does it take before, you don't want to count this number of beats. You know, you play a long song and you have a 200, 300 beats in it or whatever. You don't want to just be counting through the song like, I'm on beat 249. You want to be able to say, you know, just measure whatever, and I only have to count to 4 or whatever. You know, I don't want to count high. I'm a musician. You know, forget that. So, so what we do is we create bars or measures. They're the same thing. And we just say, how many beats do we want to have in a bar? And what that does is it gives us a general feel that we can use for organizing those beats. Now, all it does is say how many beats are going to be in a measure, and when you're writing the notation, what kind of note should you write down for each beat, right? So if I say 4/4, what I'm saying is that top number 4 is the number of beats in the measure. So it'd be 4 beats. The bottom number is saying, write a quarter note down if you want the note to last for 1 beat. Now, and I could change that. So I could say, let's play this in 4/8. What that would mean is there's still 4 beats in the measure, but now I write an 8th note each time I want to write a beat down. And you can group these really however you want. And there's lots of different time signatures. But these are all just a way really to group and understand beats. Subdivision is how you break up those beats. After you have them, what's the smaller subset of rhythms that you can create by breaking up those beats? So if you subdivide by 2, let's say we're back in 4/4. If I subdivide by 2, even though there's 4 beats in a measure and I'm writing quarter notes for each beat, if I want to break up that beat into smaller pieces by 2, I would write a bunch of 8th notes out, right? So the subdivision, if I broke it up by 2s, would be an 8th note, right? It's the way of cutting up those beats, not how many beats there are in whatever measure and what I write them with.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Very cool. All right. Next question, Chelsea.
Yeah, so there were actually a lot of questions about subdivision and how it kind of relates to a slower style. How they're used in more of like a ballad type style or that kind of thing. Because obviously Get Lucky definitely is a lot more upbeat. So
sure.
How does that translate?
Yeah, so subdivision and how you feel it is it matters no matter what music you're playing. It's easiest to really get into it and see its value right away in a groove, but how you think about it matters no matter how slow or fast you're playing. So if you're playing a ballad, there is still a certain beat that's going on, but maybe much slower, and there's still some underlying subdivision you may want to play, right? In a lot of cases with a ballad, you're playing something really slow. I'll take the same chords from Get Lucky just for fun. But anyway, so let's say I'm playing. You don't hear much. There's a little bit of stuff I might stick in there, bass note. And I'm still hearing a 16th note subdivision and using it for a bass line. Some extra notes, but it's a totally different feel. I still want to feel, and I'm swinging that subdivision, so I'm not going 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. I'm more like 1 1, making it late. The note right before the down is late. So, and then when you're playing, you'll find a lot of soloists or people who are singing the melody or playing a solo will intentionally feel the subdivision earlier or later to create a strong sense of phrasing. So that kind of phrasing, I started a little bit early and I try to let it fall back and get later, and it becomes, and I'm using my feel of subdivision over top of that. I'm changing how I'm hearing it, and that has an enormous impact on how the song is perceived and how strong your phrasing is and stuff. So it matters in every context.
Cool. All right, Chelsea, get a couple more questions ready, and I'm just going to put the links back on the screen because a few folks are asking for those. Okay, if you're looking for the ebook, there's the link, hitmusictheory.com/ebook. And if you're looking for the special price, it's hitmusictheory.com/special. Okay. Next question.
All right. I'll try to get a few more in. I'll try to be a little quicker here if I can. Go ahead.
Cool. So this one's from Gianna. She says, or he says, I'm not sure. I always come up with a melody first before anything. How do I find the right corresponding chords if you kind of go about songwriting that way?
Yeah. So what I would do is sing and just try chords underneath first is the easiest thing. If you know more theory, it turns out a lot of melodies often come straight out of notes that are in the chord. So let's see if I can remember. That melody from Get Lucky actually outlines a D major chord here, for instance. So you'll find that you could make, if your melody is like, I'll just make up something here. Let's do a. That melody is hanging around these 3 pitches, which are in this chord. So this B minor. So if you know enough theory to be able to say, oh, those pitches are in the chord. I'm singing the root 3rd and 5th of a chord or whatever, if you know that. Great, then you know what chord to play. If not, just use your ear. And you can sometimes, if you're confused, I would suggest singing the pitches you want to hear and just searching until you find it, right? So, da 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 da. So, that's where those notes are. So I can say, oh, I'll use that chord.
Cool. All right, we'll take a few more questions. We're getting close to an hour, so a few more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Cool. So I'm going to kind of combine 2 slightly similar questions here.
Okay.
Isabella asks, what is what effect will it create if you kind of like go against voice leading and purposely play chords in a progression further apart instead of all in one register? Does it kind of create a tension, or how can that be used in songwriting? And then Yanis asked, is there any trick to emphasizing certain lyrics with the chords you choose? So kind of playing off that from a songwriter perspective.
Oh yeah, totally. So first, when it comes to voice leading, just because it's not smooth doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, very often it's a lot better, right? There's a famous old tune I used to remember. Well, I'll just make something up. So let's say, this kind of sound, I'm not trying to be smooth there at all. And that's a cool sound, right? It's more open. It's a little more, it has more edge. It attacks more because it's less smooth, right? So you can add some tension in there. It's a little more disjunct, and that's really useful in a lot of contexts, especially if you're just trying to get edgier, more open. So it's definitely not like the right way to do it is to voice lead so things are as smooth as possible, right? Maybe sometimes the part you want is really disjunct and open, and that's great. Use it. Just do what you want to hear, really, is the way to address what you're looking for. Sometimes if you get more into theory and discover voice leading stuff more, you'll probably find some people who feel they have really strong opinions, and they'll say there's a right way. There's a right way to get the sound they want to hear, but there's no right way, like this is bad if you do this. It's just, what do you want to hear? As far as choosing finding chords, you said the question was to find chords that fit particularly well with a certain melody, or to
so accent? It was more about lyrics, so picking chords that might reflect what's going on in the lyrics of the song.
Oh yeah. So I think in general, there are two places I would go. First is if you really understand harmonic function, there are certain chords that you can start to find a lot of ways to intentionally use consonance and dissonance all the time, which is the musical terms for things being relaxed and kind of like a home bass, or being like really tense. And you can choose whatever pitch, whatever chord you want according to that sort of tension, if it feels like a coloristic kind of thing that works for you. The other thing to do, though, that I think often can work more powerfully, and definitely is happening a lot today because sampling is so pervasive, is to think about the music that you connect with the song that the content of the song you're writing about. So if you, for instance, one of my favorite songwriters was Leonard Cohen, and he was not a particularly religious person, but when he wrote, he would write with the lyrics. He would use religious content sometimes to say what he meant, right? And some of the simple, kind of chord progression kind of writing has some similarity to, say, a simple folk song or hymn, whatever. Let's say you really want something to be about a certain kind of dance vibe that you really like. You want people to get up and dance, and you're excited about a certain thing. Well, who do you know already as an artist who's talked about a similar kind of subject, right? Like, and how could you use that? Like, who's a good guy to use as an example? So let's say you're a folk musician and you're really into protest songs and whatever. Do you know how Bob Dylan, what chords Bob Dylan would use when in his songs, and what does that look like? And can you use that as a reference? That also, despite whatever the actual color of the chords, that can actually be just as powerful.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. If you have questions about music theory and about what we're presenting, what we're talking about, sign up for the course and get in the Facebook group. You will have the opportunity to ask all kinds of questions every single day. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody from all over the world for coming. This has been really, really awesome. Remember, you only have a matter of hours to get in on this special deal, including all 3 bonuses. So take advantage. You will not see this offer again. We're rolling the course out, and we're very, very excited about it. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for email. We'll send you links to the ebook again. We'll send you links to sign up. You'll get a replay of the masterclass. And thank you all for coming. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Chelsea. Be well.
All right, you too, guys.